felt almost illegal. Like you shouldn't be allowed to have this technology and to see these CIA style, or I don't know, like what the government agency could have this. How do you felt when you saw that it's actually working?
Man, it's funny because like it started off as like a silly weekend project, right? One of the things I had a chance to work on at Google was like photogrammetry and the 3D tiles API. And I was just like vibe coding and I was like, oh, I want to like put something on the globe to bring it to life, as we just discussed. Like, a static rendition of the planet's really cool, but how do you make it dynamic? So I went down the rabbit hole of OSINT, or open source intelligence, just to understand what are the kinds of layers that you can overlay on top of a globe that have sort of mostly global coverage. And then I discovered there's this thing called ADS-B. Oh, it's like every plane is like squawking its position. And there's like 35,000 volunteers that have like a cheap like receiver that basically aggregates these unencrypted signals that are flying over their heads. And
so sorry, is the same technology or similar technology as we can see in the Flight Radar app, or?
Exactly the same technology. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically there's like the vessel tracking apps and the flight tracking apps. All the flight stuff is called ADS-B. And then all the vessel stuff is called AIS. And roughly you can think of it as the same thing where, all these, you kind of have a social contract if you're using shared airspace or infrastructure in the real world. Just like a car, you should be able to see the traffic that's coming at you. These vehicles basically like release their position. And yeah, you just need like, tens of thousands of volunteers to build a digital twin of all the planes on the planet. And so all the flight radar apps work in a similar fashion. They've got, communities of contributors and, other, essentially receivers that they install over the world to collect this type of data. Same thing with vessel data as well. And then satellite positions, NORAD, officially releases basically the TLEs, as they're called, of, all these satellites. And you can propagate and figure out the path of where those things are. And so, yeah, I mean, like I can pull up the visual here for the audience, so just so they have a thing to look at. So that's kind of what you see over here is all of this data overlaid. Now, where this got interesting and I think started feeling kind of insane is like, when you have all these planes, right? These planes also share their GPS confidence. So if you aggregate like GPS confidence on these H3 cells, you can see where is GPS jamming happening. And so, kind of what started as like a fun little weekend project, which was basically this thing over here, just to see like what layers are available, turn into something, more profound when the Iran conflict started. And basically I asked my agents to snapshot that 24-hour period of the initial strikes. And suddenly it went from like a pretty looking Earth with some data on it to essentially a 4D reconstruction of, like a global conflict starting and air traffic rerouting. And you can see, which satellites were overhead before and after the strikes, and start building a pretty complete picture of what's going on, especially when you start layering in, kind of images and visuals that people share on Twitter as well. Like Twitter is insane. The OSINT community there is like, they go on Telegram group chats and they find a photo, video, they figure out like they geolocate it just by hand, like Rainbolt style. And then they'll be like lat long confirmed. This is the location.
Is there any kind of hacking behind it also? Or do you think the community is just using the legal way of how getting things to work and display?
For the most part, what I've come across in OSINT is all, above ground work. There does get into kind of more, I guess, like iffy stuff when you go into the sort of the ad tech location tracking model. That's where there's some like interesting things happening, but I'm not playing with that kind of data yet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When you mentioned that you asked your agents, doesn't mean you are working with like multiple different AIs at the same time, or I just suppose you're not just using the prompts in Claude, and so it's a bit more sophisticated, right?
Yeah, I like to use all the agents. So I was using OpenClaw very heavily for like my personal management, if you will. And then I switched over to Hermes agent recently. But I like using, for the initial build, I ended up using Gemini, Claude, and Codex. And recently I've been more on just Codex and Claude, and I can't wait for Fable is coming back today. Oh my God, I'm so excited for that. Yeah, those are great harnesses, and kind of use them like both of them have really good desktop apps now, but you can also have them review each other's work. So I kind of view them as like teammates that I'm working with, and I tend to do more of the spec generation and initial like ideation of like the technical approach we're going to take with Claude, and then I'll always do what's called like an adversarial review with Codex, where Codex will sort of come in like the curmudgeon tech lead, being like, let me question all your assumptions and see like if this design actually makes sense to implement as is. It's also really good for finding bugs. So I use them all. And then for the Telegram purposes and WhatsApp purposes, I like using Hermes Agent these days.
I'm experimenting with the vibe coding myself, and what I feel as a bottleneck right now for me, maybe I'm just not into it deep enough, but it's the stability of the end product or the end solution, and also like the updates. If I want to add something or just fix something, add new data, it's not always doing what it should be doing. How is your end product working? Like, did you have to do a lot of tweaks to make it work, or you just simply knew how to do the prompting correctly?
I mean, like, this is the general problem with vibe coding, right? Like, as you make iterative changes, if you're not careful about the architecture you're building up top, it's like sort of laying the foundation for a home. If you don't lay the right foundation, adding stuff after the fact can be tough. So it's funny, like, people go through two approaches. Honestly, I haven't had a huge issue with this, like, because I think like the way to build these kind of geospatial applications is fairly well understood. And if you explain it to these systems, they're pretty good at it. But I do run into issues when I'm playing with stuff. Like I'm trying to make another thing right now where I have my Meta Ray-Ban glasses on, and basically I live in Texas. I'm going to like the shooting range, and I want this thing to count every time I hit or miss a target, right? And gosh, that's been a pain in the ass, but more on the model precision and recall for like detecting if it did or didn't happen. I'm trying to do all these kind of hacks to like, oh, let me make a bounding box and just send the bounding box of the detections to like Gemini, for example, as a VLM to, grade if this was a hit or miss. But what I found is a general tip when I'm like prototyping, it's like, sometimes it's easier to just start from scratch again. So what I'll do is have the agent kind of distill its learnings into a markdown file. And given that code is so cheap right now, right? Like it's so cheap to just rebuild the whole thing. Sometimes it's like easier to rebuild from the ground up with a new feature in mind than it is to like basically, kind of try to backfit it to something that you might have vibe coded already. The other fun thing that if you haven't tried, you should definitely do, and encourage your audience to do too, is like Codex's inbuilt browser on like the Mac and Windows app is really good. So especially for geospatial things where you want the agent to look at the visual output. Like let's say you're trying to figure out how to create like fat lines, that are performant when you have like, 10,000 elements on a screen or whatever. You want this model to be able to, look at the output, change something, look at the output again, change something. So with the inbuilt browser, like the harnesses have gotten so good that you can create that sort of feedback loop with what's called a slash goal. And you can kind of set a goal for it to kind of iteratively like review its output, and it does a better job. You'll see it kind of stumbling, but I don't mind because I'm like, I'm just going to leave you running all night and come back, in the morning. And, even if it's stumbling and hitting some walls, it kind of ends up in the right location.
It's funny you mentioned that it's easier to start it over and to like redo the whole process from the ground, from the beginning. I found out the same with because I'm lately experimenting with AI videos. Okay, when I try to create my AI avatar and use it in different like situations, holding the scanner or doing some movements, and it's exactly the same with AI videos. Like if you like create the scene and you are not satisfied with the one thing, or you want to replace the object, or you want to replace the scene, it's always easier to do it like all over again rather than suggesting the AI to like remove this environment and put me in a forest or whatever. it will usually screw up. It actually happened the same with the thumbnail when I was preparing for our episode. I asked the AI to create the thumbnail for the episode, and it used our pictures correctly. Everything was fine, and then I asked only to add live button to the image, so that people know that it's going to be live. It really screwed our pictures like heavily.
Or likeness changes, right? Like totally.
Like
I've
very,
seen that,
very,
yeah.
very much. So I like really had to redo it backwards.
And what model are you using? Is this Gemini and like Nano Banana or something, or what do you?
For pictures?
Yeah.
For
Or
pictures,
ChatGPT.
I just use ChatGPT. Yeah.
Which is pretty good too. Yeah. Yeah. The other problem with the images, and I think, it's like the hot term is like context management these days, which is like, I run into this with Nano Banana a lot in Gemini, where it's like, if you have a long chat and you're like, you've got iterations of a thumbnail. I use it for YouTube thumbnails all the time too. And it's the same thing. Like, if you have enough of those images in the context, it keeps going back to that design, which is helpful if you're making iterative changes, but not very helpful if you want to try 4 or 5 different designs. So in that situation, like when the context gets polluted, I just like start 4 or 5 different like chats. And that's the other fun part is like try plugging in your API key to, by the way, in Codex, you can do ChatGPT image generation. That's really fun to experiment with, where you could drop in like a transcript of, let's say, your video and be like, here's what you have, a markdown file that describes your usual style. You can even be like, hey, Codex, I want you to go use like, YTDL CLI, the CLI that lets you download thumbnails, download it from my channel, look at my current style, create like a style rubric, then create new images, review them, and show me the best 3 that you come up with. And so it's like starts doing the things that that you would have otherwise done. It's really exciting. And most people don't think of Codex like that because like, oh, coding app. And I've been telling more and more creators even be like, no. Use Codex on your desktop. You don't have to use command line anymore. It's really, really fun. And you can also text it from your ChatGPT app then. So it'll keep cranking on your computer. And you just go to the Codex tab in ChatGPT.
You mentioned earlier that you used the OpenClaw from the beginning. What do you think about how secure it is? Because like whole world is speaking about security, about not allowing like external world to access your data and everything else. And then there is OpenClaw, where you allow it to do almost everything on your computer. So like zero security there, right? So how did you feel? How did you feel about that when you were trying the OpenClaw for the first time, or didn't you like think about that at all?
Oh no, of course I did. I think like many people, I put it on a separate computer. I had it on an old Mac. I put it on like a separate email ID, made a separate iCloud for it. I gave it like read access to my calendar. I would only forward it emails. I wouldn't like give it carte blanche because this was like back in like Jan and Feb, right? It's like the early days of OpenClaw. Now it's gotten a lot more robust. I had a chance to get Peter over to the TED Talks conference this year, and Chris asked this exact question about like, did you unleash this like monster on the world? And he had a funny answer, which was like, well, Mac Mini sales went up really heavily or something like this. But, the point is like, I think what Peter did and what OpenClaw did is it took this leap of faith that I think the main companies were unwilling to take with like, oh, let's give a model access to everything you can do on a computer. And you can certainly cordon off you can limit the blast radius of things that can go wrong. It's still not foolproof. By giving it its dedicated machine and kind of treating it like an employee in a sense. Like, you may not on the first day give an employee access to your personal email and your personal computer. Be like, here's my phone and computer, go do whatever. You wouldn't do that, right? So I think of it very much like this. And now that there's like all the proprietary harnesses like Codex, it's like, I think a lot of people are more comfortable trying something from OpenAI than like, let's say some open source project that's like getting a bunch of commits. Though it's funny, I was seeing like Satya Nadella and Microsoft's like doing OpenClaw for enterprise now. Hermes agents like blowing up, and at least, it's like we have more options, proprietary and open source to play with. But definitely, I think anyone who experiments with this stuff, start slow. Like you can always give more access, but
Yeah. Where do you see like the the leap or the difference, like most of the people has already tried the ChatGPT or Gemini or whichever, but usually for like find me this or explain me this or
Right.
do the summary of this, right? So it's like I would say like a Google on steroids, right?
Yep.
But
Well said.
doing the agentic work is quite different to just using the AI to answer questions. So, how would you describe the difference to the person that has never worked with agentic work on the side of AI?
Yeah, I mean, I think a good way to think about it is like the mental model in my head is sort of like a bit of a like an octopus is the analogy that comes to mind, and I'll explain that because that sounds interesting. Think of these models sort of like the brain, and then you give them a bunch of tools that they can use, and these are tools that could be APIs, they could be software on your computer. They can basically take action on your behalf programmatically through like these API contracts or just doing stuff on your computer. So it's like the next level of agency, and hence the whole kind of hype around agentic AI, right? That's how I think about it, because it's like the other way to think about it, just going back to the thumbnail example, is let's say you're building out a thumbnail in Gemini app or ChatGPT app. Whatever was like 5 or 6 turns with the agent, maybe 12 or 13 turns if you're doing complicated stuff, or just hundreds of turns, you can collapse that down to one higher order task that you hand to an agent. And as long as you give it pretty clear criteria of how it can measure its own success, these things can do very long horizon tasks. So the MITRE Corporation has this interesting study that they do where they look at how long can you keep some of the various models running for hours on an end on various tasks, and that number just is going up. So that's kind of how I view it, is like what I want agentic AI to feel like, and it's not quite there yet, which is I want it to feel like I'm standing over the shoulder of a person that's sort of like in a time machine. And I can just be like, hey, do this, do that, do the other thing. Like I said, download my transcript, download my thumbnails, pull out a style guide, put that in a markdown file. Yes, I'll review that. Then based on that markdown file, I want you to create some images. Oh, before you make the images, can you research the latest like prompting guidelines for Nano Banana, like the new one versus the last one, and update your prompts accordingly, and then show it to me. And so it feels like you're standing over the shoulder of this person that can work really, really fast and send stuff to you. And it's funny, more and more my interaction with agents have kind of turned into giving these tasks on mobile and waiting for a message back and then giving some more tasks. And so it's like, in like 15, 20-minute intervals, you kind of hear back from the agent. And that's so much more fun and freeing than sitting there for that 2 hours or 3 hours where you do that all yourself.
And you are using the Telegram to communicate, or the WhatsApp, or which
I use
platform
both. I like WhatsApp a bit more. Yeah, some people like Telegram.
Is there any like fundamental difference? Like, why would one use
like the formatting is slightly nicer in Telegram. Some people like that. WhatsApp is some of the connector. It's a little hacky how you get it connected. But fundamentally, it's all the same. Like, I do have a Discord connection as well, which I like using sometimes when I'm at my computer, because that's how I interface with like my real real editor, so I can like context switch more easily. But fundamentally, think of all of these things as just like a router. You've got a gateway that you can message and communicate, and then route the message to the right agent.
But maybe we could explain this to people that has never done this agentic work, because usually when you tried, for example, OpenCloud, you had to use the terminal, right? So you had to knew a bit of a coding and the Python language or whatever. You had to do these prompts, installations, and then communicate it in within the terminal. But then it allowed you to like attach the either Telegram or the WhatsApp app or similar
iMessage
others.
Even. Yeah.
iMessage, yeah. So it actually means that you can communicate with your AI agent or agents through the messaging platform.
That's right.
Is it correct?
That's right. Yeah. And you don't have to use the TUI, You can go to the TUI, see that session running on the computer. But fundamentally, it just frees you up to talk to the agent however you want. And the cool part about it is, like early open call, you got to at least go into your, command line and, do the initial installation, which is pretty simple. But now like things like Hermes agent, one-click Windows installer, right? You just one click, it's ready to go. Same thing with Codex. Same thing. And what's cool is like Codex, when you do, if you want to set up messaging it from your iPhone or whatever, right? Like, so you're in the ChatGPT app and you can talk to the thing. It sets up like the tail scale and all that other stuff for you. So even compared to a couple months ago, it's so much easier that like, I think most people listening to this probably have a ChatGPT subscription. I'd encourage them to like at least download the Codex app on Mac and Windows and like play with it and use it for non-coding things. Like I almost think of it like anything that you can come up with a standard operating procedure for, like something that you'd record like a Loom video to explain somebody else to do it, you could probably get an agent to do it, even if it involves using the browser, a set of APIs, etc. And it's really, really quite fun. In fact, a cool feature, both Codex and I think Anthropic has it too, which is like you can now screen record. So you're like, hey, screen record, watch me do this thing. And now I want you to reproduce that task, which is really cool. That like, again, goes a step towards this feeling of, standing over the shoulder of like a genius that can just do things on your computer for you.
I need to try this with the registration software for laser scanning. I'd be really interested if it can do at least something for me. I
you know where it'd be really useful for that type of stuff, like all the things that you'd use, like a DIT, like somebody like offloading files and reorganizing them, and kind of naming things and kicking off various scripts for pipelines and pre-processing. To give you a funny example, like when I use Litchfield Studio now, dude, I don't even use the UI. I just connect my like SD card and I'm like, hey, please grab the files, organize them, like run it. We've got a bunch of canned settings. Please run it and then show me the result when it's done. So like I'm off doing other things on my Windows machine. This thing's happening in the background. It runs it headless. And then when it's ready, it opens up the UI for me. And I'm like, okay, cool. And now export like PLY, do an SPZ export to great, And it's like, it's so magical to get rid of the mundane parts, of dealing with these captures. And,
I haven't thought about it, but this is actually a cool point. Like just imagine how many programming hours and development and research is spent on UX and UI within the softwares, right? And like, how far are we from, I don't care about the UX UI, like do whatever you want on a background. I just want to put this prompt or put my image or the video, give you instructions, and I just want a result. I don't care about the UX of your software.
Yeah,
because that's what you are describing right now, right? With the Litchfield, like I don't care about how it looks like. I just want to back the 3D Gaussian splatting. I don't care about how you do it.
Yeah, it's like, and why do I have to every time open the UI and like dial in the right settings? It's like, no, this should just happen programmatically. And obviously, a lot of people have been using CLI, right? Let's say for RealityCapture app or things like this to do this kind of batch processing. But I think now it just becomes so accessible to somebody that doesn't want to deal with, like imagine how painful it would be to go into ChatGPT and write those scripts and set it up and test it. And now you can just like, ask the agent to do it for you. And it kind of like bumps you when it has questions. And like I think a lot of legacy software could just be like running headless in the cloud too. I keep wondering if that's what's going to happen to Adobe tools as well, right? It's like Photoshop. Some of these tools also feel like it's like the F-35 cockpit. There's like too many buttons. It's like, I don't know. Oh gosh. Like, do I need to know all of this if I just want to?
You work with photogrammetry in Google, right? So right, yeah. You certainly know the RealityCapture before, the software. Like I always compare it to like Photoshop. It can do anything, but it's so freaking hard to learn because there are so many settings and you have like zero explanation to those, like what effects it has and what does it actually do. So like the ability to say to the agent, like, here are my pictures, put it in a reality scan, do your tests, do your benchmarks, do your testing, and just bring me the best possible model within, I don't know, like 500 megabytes. Okay, and let them do the hard work with settings, all the information and variables there.
That's very close to what I did with Litchfield, like very, very close. And we ended up like, and I say we, it's like me and my agent, ended up with like,
I have this family-ish feeling from you.
It's weird, man. That's the part that's like really weird about this. And yeah, all of the models have their own personality. Like the joke is like,
are they males or females?
So it's funny, my agents, I've got a mix. So like my strategist, and I base them off of different characters. So like my strategist is Carter from the TV show Stargate SG-1. So that's a she. And then my coding agent that like reviews all my code is based off of John Carmack. And so like you can have a mix of these, right? And then like I've got Nod, which is sort of like my journaling and spiritual agent. It'll like help me journal in the morning and nights. It's like, it's crazy. And so what's cool about this is since in the world knowledge of these models, you have these characters. If you want it to take on a persona, you can very much do this. So it's funny, like, you know, one of my buddies is like, main agent is Gandalf, right? Like, so it's like, it's just all, you could give it the Gandalf voice too, if you want, right? With 11 labs or whatever. So it gets very fun. It really does start feeling like your own team. But going back to RealityCapture, we ended up with two sets of settings, one for like outdoor blue sky and one for indoor, and it optimized the settings accordingly. There's maybe a third one we came up with for when it's handheld and there's a lot of exposure, like lighting exposure changes. It does the SSIP or whatever mode that is and turns that on. And these are all things that we just iterated on. And now whenever these agents wake up, because they kind of wake up with no memory, they can just read that markdown file and be like, I know how to do this. And so the next time you drop in, you know, whatever it is, it'll just crank and do it for you.
Are you sometimes mean to your AI agents?
I've been very mean to Claude lately, especially after Fable access got cut off. I think that was just like, especially when it's like, oh gosh, Claude can be a little infuriating.
It's not that you don't like him. He just did something very bad, right?
Exactly. It's like did something that I didn't ask for, or it's like what the hell are you doing? Like, and why did you do that? And it's not fixed. It's like that's it's so funny how a lot of this is people discuss this, like how much of this is like the real regression in the model versus like us just feeling a certain way. And it's given the stochastic nature of these models, it's kind of hard to tell because like. You know, have you noticed this on social media? People, after a model comes out, is like people are like, "Oh my god, this model's amazing." And a couple of weeks later, they'd be like, "Oh, they nerfed the model. You know, they made it cheaper. It's like not the same anymore." But is it? Like the benchmarks are the same. It's like a weird reverse Rorschach test or something. It's like a grand psychological experiment.
I don't know how it's the idiom in English, but we have in our language we have this saying that today's record is the tomorrow's norm. Like, you know, so that's exactly what's happening. Like, you are very amazed today with the update or with the new model, but you get very fast used to the standard of this model. Very and true. Tomorrow it's simply slow. It's not doing what you wanted because even your level just went up, right?
Yeah,
and your
totally.
Expectations. So.
It's a hedonic treadmill of adaptation. We got cool, and it's funny. Like I think back to, you know, like would I even have been able to build this over a weekend, like last October? Probably not. I don't know. Like it's like, and we adapt so quickly that we want the next thing, and it's very true. It's same thing with like media, like the video models. They've gotten good to a point where I'm kind of over them. That's honestly half the reason I went back into doing geospatial stuff. Is like all the video and image models like reached a point where. It's like, is there even more to do there? Like, I don't know. That's, but we got problems of many riches at our disposal, and maybe less appreciation than we should.
Mm. Oh, how do you feel about the situation with banning some AI models in Europe?
Man, I mean, the Europe thing is interesting because most AI products, the meme is, right, like, and of course, being a former product manager, having dealt with DMA and GDPR, it's a lot of effort. I mean, it's funny. It's like almost turned into a meme where most AI launches on launch, including Apple, like, oh, this is available everywhere except for Europe. And I think it's for compliance purposes. In terms of like what's happening with like Fable right now, I think it'll be interesting to see what a precedent is set where, there's talk about, oh, do you need to like do ID verification or, proof of citizenship, even if you can use a model, like you have to be a US citizen to use some of the models. I think that's changing as of today. I haven't caught up on the news. It's still early over here, but I hope that's changing. Like, I hope that's not going to be the case, but I see like it's turning into this weird, it's this thing where the models are getting so powerful and so dual use as a consequence that there's going to be more discussions between government and state. And then there's the Europe angle, which is like, how do you roll out these models in a fashion that's compliant with the regulatory landscape which is just harder.
But these are two separate topics, like the EU regulations and the fact that EU is just consuming itself because of the regulations, and we have policies for everything. It's crazy. Like, it's so much of a bottleneck for the development and for the progress. Is really horrible. But my question was aiming more to the fact that your guy at the top was able from day to day just to stop some models for being used outside of the US, right?
Or even in the US, like Fable was cut for everyone. Like, I don't know if you know this, like Fable was like cut for everyone. So like, kind of how this happened is, it's so funny because you hear both, like, this is the media landscape. You hear both sides and you're kind of trying to reconcile what actually happened. But roughly the outcome was that Anthropic had to stop, basically what they were told is, hey, you need export controls to get this stuff out there, which means like you can't even have non-citizens using it, meaning there were like Anthropic employees that couldn't use it, meaning you had to know who the hell is a citizen and a non-citizen, regardless of where they like signed up from, if they can or can't use this, right? So you can't just use the credit card because, you could just use somebody else's credit card or whatever. So that resulted in them saying, okay, we're just going to stop this wholesale. And now I think now that they've got some alignment on the guardrails issue, they're rolling it out like globally again. So as of the last thing I saw before I jumped on this was that it's being released globally today and rolling out back again. So, I mean, like, in the 5.6, Codex 5.6 got delayed too. And so it's this, I go back to this point of like the text getting so powerful that if you take this stuff and, I don't know, I point it at some like innocuous dentist office and say, hey, find every vulnerability in like, in this particular website, and you try to extract a bunch of personal data, or you use it for finding vulnerabilities in a bunch of government systems that are probably old and, haven't been maintained. How do you find that balance? And I think that's like, it's only going to get more challenging as these models get more and more powerful, right? But hopefully we'll figure out some regime where the whole world can get this stuff at the same time. And, kind of that seemed to be the pitch of all these companies. Like, we're democratizing intelligence. So hopefully, they can stay true to that.
Mm-hmm. Let me go through some of questions that we have here. So Rami's asking, he's actually asking both of us. When you look at what has already made possible from the time it was launched up until today, before AI hit the market, nobody could have predicted it would be doing anything like this. So what are our expectations for the period of time, 27 to 2030? Yeah. You're the expert here. You go first.
Oh, Lord. I mean, predictions are so... I can make like 6-month predictions. That's kind of how I've been joking that like as from 2023, which is when I really started like focusing on AI, it's like, or Gen AI, I should say, versus the usual computer vision stuff. The window with which you could predict has been coming closer and closer. So it almost feels like there's this like very dense fog beyond 6 months of like what you can actually expect these models to do. And so, there's debates over, is it a smooth exponential that we're on, or like a fast one, or is it going to speed up, or I don't know. What is pretty clear to me is that agents are going to be able to do like multiple days of work. That's very clear. And it's very clear that we're going to be able to generate pretty much every modality in and out. You'll be able to ingest anything from text, images, videos, 3D, 4D, and output any modality that you want. It'll essentially be interchangeable. What that means in terms of the application landscape, that's the hardest thing to predict. Where, I'm very interested, like for maybe any designers listening, like what's going to happen to Figma? Like, is Figma actually in a good place because they have a a collaborative canvas for, collaboratively building design systems. And they're obviously integrating AI in a similar story with, like, let's say the Adobes of the world. Or are we just is software going to become so disposable? I kind of call it like disposable software. Like I said, it's cheap enough to just rebuild the thing, right? If software is disposable, will we just kind of build, kind of bespoke software for our own needs? And, we will all be developers and, customers of platforms. Like, I don't know about that part, but it's very clear to me that we're going to have multiple AI agents that are part of our team that are doing a bunch of stuff for us. And that progress does not seem like it's gonna slow down at all. I'm very excited on the multimodal in and out front too, because it's like World Labs is doing some cool stuff, and same thing with like Spatial, which is based in the EU, right? Like a handful of images to like a rich 3D reconstruction where you use the world knowledge of some of these diffusion models to fill in the gaps. I'm super excited about 2D video turning into just volumetric 4D video. Like there's so many other interesting things that were hard. Like I remember working on VR video circa 2017 with these like jump ring cameras and like stereo cameras. Like, gosh, like right now 2D to 3D stereo conversion is getting pretty good. But when are we going to have 6DoF? And we're seeing early versions of that with Apple, right? Like some of the work that they're doing. And, to go from a single image to like a light headbox 3D reconstruction, that's obviously going to come to video as well. And the volume within which you can navigate will start expanding. So yeah, those are some highlights that I feel confident about, and some of the things that I'm like, I roughly know it's going to go in this direction, but we'll just have to find out. How about you?
I've heard this reference lately, comparing the AI stage right now or like around this period compared to early stages of the Bitcoin. Like,
okay.
Wherever it might go, you have to jump on this train right now. Like yesterday was too late. Because it's either going to the moon or to the stars or to another galaxy, but still freakingly far away from the Earth, right? So
yes, it's achieved escape velocity. That's very clear. Yeah,
I had this discussion with my parents that just recently started using AI, and they were like, "Oh, but kids will be getting dumber and dumber with AI." I mean, this discussion is over. Like this is already happening. Like there will never be ever the period of time without AI, unless there is like a nuclear war or whatever.
Yeah, like a massive solar flare takes out all the machines.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like there's no stepping back. Okay, so the information is losing its value. Like to be storing the information in your head is the most inefficient way how to like work and spend your time just trying to remember something. This is gone. We have Google to remember everything. We have AI to think of everything. So actually, we need to just start using AI and try to leverage it on like our to our advantage. Like try to be thinking in more complex ways, not just about like I need to create this table, this data sheet of something, because it will be created in 3 seconds with the AI.
100%. Right? Yeah, I mean, so, it's yeah. How do you feel about that criticism though, which is sort of like, sort of the atrophying, like your mind is going to atrophy, right? Like people are going to get dumber. I think there's something to it. It's like, and I struggle with this. I'm curious if you find yourself finding ways around this, which is like the one argument is like, oh yeah, like we're just building a new kind of muscle to manage all these AIs, right? Like we're the conductor of the orchestra. It's a new kind of muscle. The thinking that you did, you outsource it, but now you're thinking at this higher level of abstraction. On the other hand, I'm kind of like trying to force myself to like, I don't know, man, like write more on pieces of paper. And also I'm trying to force myself to do voice notes and dictations when I go on walks. And finally, I try to write the first draft of like important shit myself. Like, I don't want to just lean on the AI to do the thing. Like, if it's a summary of something and I reply to an email, the agent can do that. But if I'm writing like a script or like a concept or, something like that, like I want to get my thoughts down first. And I can't tell if I'm just like hanging on to something or, that's like kind of slowing me down or versus like the equivalent of like in the physical world, machines do a lot of physical labor for us these days, but we still go to the gym. I wonder if we're going to have to come up with some kind of like cognitive exercise that we end up doing to keep something in our minds like sharper, some capabilities in our mind sharper, even though machines can do them.
Yeah, I think I know what you're thinking, and I'm not going through this thinking process. As I mentioned before, I think that there is no stepping back. Like even though like US and EU would say that yeah, we are banning AI, we don't want to use it because our kids are getting dumber. There still will be at least one country that will allow this, and the whole world will be using. So there's no stepping back. And with that being said, I'm just not thinking about it. We
AI
will be solving.
maximalist.
We will be solving very different things with AI in the future. Okay, so for example, when the calculators were invented, like you stopped thinking about how to multiple like big numbers.
Sure.
You are still learning it in a school, but it's very useless. Like you
Sure.
will never be trying to do it by hand, right? It's totally useless skill to be able to calculate large numbers. Okay, so I think in a bigger scale, this is happening with AI. That we are still thinking and feeling nostalgic about things that will be just unimportant in the future.
There we go. So there you go. Hell yeah. AI
And
maximalism, baby.
yeah, and but not AI maximum. Yeah, this is maybe a topic for the next discussion, because I have been speaking to several people that are in Elon Musk's thinking about AI. Like there will be this utopia in the future where nobody will work ever again. Everybody will do just what they want to do. So let this for the next 5 minutes.
Sure.
But I just wanted to mention that I have strong feeling like I'm this enthusiast of the simulation theory. I don't know what's your point of view about that, but I really think like with what I can see right now with the development of virtual reality, with AI, with all the computational power and everything else, like there is for me a zero chance that this has not happened before. Like we are almost there for VR to be indistinguishable from the reality. You can already simulate a situation for your brain that like you can make your brain thinking that something is happening even though it's not happening within the VR. Okay.
Sure.
Just a few weeks ago, Elon Musk had this podcast, and he said that with their Neuralink, they are already able to allow blind people to see. And in the time period of, I think he said like 1 or 2 years, they will be able to allow these people to see temperatures, for example, and the whole spectrum of the light. So we are really building these cyborgs from us. Right, and the simulation theory is basically saying that there are multiple versions of the world developing simultaneously, and we are experimenting only the one that is most interesting. So I never think about the world that it's going to be a disaster. No, the nature, the simulation will always move us towards something interesting, something new, something developing.
Worst case, the simulation just get rebooted, and the next one will be better, right? Whatever.
Exactly. It's the same logic when what I use when somebody says that he's afraid of flying. Like, what are you afraid of? There is no chance you will survive. Okay, so it's not like you go into an accident with the car and you will spend the rest of your life on a wheelchair. There is nothing to be afraid in flying. If it crashes, you're done.
That's my motto too. When I sit on the plane,
reboot the simulation. Like,
I mean, it is. I tend to have a pretty. I think a lot of people do look at AI, and it's interesting. I wonder how it is in Europe. Like in America, at least compared to, I was visiting India at the end of last year, and it was very interesting to see just how positive everyone was about AI. Whereas in the U.S., like, you must have seen there's a lot of negativity towards data centers, towards AI period, and sort of AI slop, and so on and so forth. And I don't know, like even some of the surveillance concerns about this technology, I tend to have a pretty cautiously optimistic view on kind of where things are going. So I think I share that with you, which is like, also like, it feels like a lot of folks are almost ceding their own agency where they take it as a default outcome that this is bad. And rather than doing something constructive about it, I think we're all just like, kind of shouting at each other on social platforms that are algorithmically, reinforcement learning, RLHFing us to shout at each other more. And so hopefully that can change, because it really shocked me where, and then I ended up going to this Google event in December where this VP was saying like, oh, this is true. Like the global South in general has a much more optimistic take on AI than Western civilization right now, even though the West came up with this tech. And so I wonder how that's going to play out, if it's just like a rocky transition or if things will get, things will get a little bit better. But, that's not to say that there isn't hype in AI. There's a lot of hype in AI, let's be honest too. But man,
I also still think that we will be facing the like crash with AI on markets, because
Sure.
with all of those investments loops that are doing like the Nvidia, Oracle, and so on, like this is a huge bubble. This will burst. It does not mean that we will stop using AI. It just means that a lot of people will lose a lot of money on investments.
And then it'll get priced correctly. I agree. We're like on the peak of inflated expectations. There's going to be, like a trough of disillusionment that we have to go through before things recover. But net, I'm happy that we've got AI. I mean, it's magical, the fact that this tech even exists and we can do all the things we can do.
But from your previous videos that I have watched, like, I don't know, like a year ago or 2 years ago, when you were also heavily into like aliens on a TikTok and different maybe conspiracies, I had a feeling that you are quite close to like I don't want to call you a conspiracy theorist, but like you like
Yeah,
this
please
stuff,
don't.
right? But you like this stuff. You like thinking about it, right?
I kind of view it as, so I've got two channels, right? I've got Billy FX, which is my VFX channel, and then I've got my actual name channel, right? And so I started making these kind of videos probably like 2018-ish. Though the biggest video on that channel is crazy. It's like a pumpkin zombie going through San Francisco. It's like a 360 video that still keeps getting views. It has like 50 million views or something absurd like this. I really like spooky, esoteric topics. I love science fiction. I love thrillers. Like I got into this whole space through visual effects. So what better way to sort of, I kind of like have two modes. There's blending reality and imagination, and then there's connecting the physical and digital world. So for the subject matter, gosh, like I love sci-fi. I love all this like kind of alien chatter that's been going on lately. It's like the government's like progressively releasing more and more grainy videos. And so around 2017, when that started happening here in the US, I started making my like TikToks around that, because they're like the perfect subject matter to do visual effects. And it's sort of like this like fictitious world that you can build this world with every single short. I haven't made any of those videos for about a year or so, just because the video models got so good, man. I was like, this doesn't feel fun anymore to just prompt a video and upload it.
Anybody can do it now.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I think it's like I'm very creative, and I love exploring how to build these kind of amazing fictitious worlds that have like a tinge of reality in it. Because I don't like making fully animated stuff. It has to be anchored in the physical world for me. That's really fun. And so yeah, folks can go check out Billy FX on YouTube and TikTok. I still got the content still keeps doing well, which is amazing. It's like it just keeps racking up views.
There is a reason why I wanted to touch the conspiracies, because I don't want to push the narration of the conspiracy theories. I just want to touch the case that we are tracked. We are all leaving the digital footprint of
Oh yeah, that's
ourselves,
not a conspiracy theory. Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's not conspiracy theory. So I have seen from your videos that you are like very deeply also into this, like you are very interested in this topic. So like can you just walk us briefly through what, because like having the iPhone or like phone in general being tracked, it's something easily expected. Being watched through using of the credit cards, these are like very stereotypical and like very natural things to track, right? So what are the footprints that we are leaving that are not that obvious?
I think the one that I've been most scared by is certainly location data. That's the one, and I think there's a cool question that you've got here from like Vincent or something in here, kind of related to this.
The first one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is like
you yeah, I can pull it.
I think this is sort of the heart of the question I'm trying to answer. And, unfortunately, I don't have a great answer to it. But what I can do is like people should know what technology is capable of doing. And people should understand, again, like not that it's a purely negative thing or a purely positive thing, right? But it's sort of like a bit of both. And we have to decide as a society, sort of how do you optimize the, upside and mitigate the downside? But in terms of the ways we're tracked, like I think location data and sort of what like, the ad tech industry has at their disposal is actually very chilling. I think the capabilities of like RF based mapping is getting more and more advanced. So I made a video recently on sort of Wi-Fi and kind of how can Wi-Fi perceive, just do presence detection, but then how this tech is also capable of doing spatial tracking within your home. That stuff's very, very chilling, right? On one hand, it's exciting. Oh my God, my agent knows when I walked into the room and the lights turn on. Great, amazing. But at the same time, like you're building a very detailed pattern of life of what people are doing, right? And the next Wi-Fi standard is explicitly trying to address this sort of tension between this capability. Like, how do you, again, like make it not a crazy panopticon surveillance tool, but you kind of do it in the right way where it's like useful to folks, so that you don't have to like do these automations with, let's say, invasive cameras in your home. Nobody wants to put cameras inside their home. Mostly people feel comfortable putting it outside their home. So RF is another really interesting one. Another one is like IMU based tracking has gotten really good. So like long range tracking based on just like the motion sensors on your phone, on your wristwatch. If you have a couple of those, I mean, if you go down the rabbit hole the patents companies have, like literally your Apple Watch can tell the difference between you're in the driver's seat versus you're in the passenger seat by picking up the subtle vibrations in the steering wheel. And with AI, like these models are getting good enough where you could do like, you have no GPS, but just based on IMU, you can like reconstruct a very realistic real world trajectory of where you've been. And then regulating those things gets very hard, right? Like right now, I just made a video about geofence warrants, and there's a landmark ruling that just happened in the Supreme Court where it's deemed to be geofence warrants. For folks listening, is basically the ability for the authorities to draw a circle on a map, and let's say a bank robbery happens, essentially go ask any location data, like company that has location data, let's say Google, Snapchat, whatever, right? And basically be like, hey, tell me all users that were in this circle around this time. So the Supreme Court just ruled that that's against the Fourth Amendment. And so that's like progress, right? Like, but gosh, that was a multi-year story to get here where people built awareness about it. There's all these new emerging technologies that are popping up that are going to get very powerful much faster than location tracking did. And we're not really discussing them. And so IMU and RF based tracking is perhaps one of those buckets where like, how do you regulate math? Like you're not collecting location data. It's just like IMU data off your phone. But if an app or like some aggregator could use that to reconstruct long range trajectories of what you're doing, like people should at least know that that's possible, right?
But also like the regulatory agencies and people responsible for this, they are usually less clever than those that are developing these technologies. Okay, so if some company is developing this IMU that can track your Apple Watches and just reconstruct the path where you went, and they claim it's only for, I don't know, to better understand the jogging style and like
Yeah,
who
yeah.
is on the other side to say no, but guys, you can use it for this, and we don't want to use it
I mean, this
for
happened with
that.
Strava, right? Like Strava, people were tracking their runs, and it turned out when Strava released this aggregated data set of all the fun running paths, it revealed all these military bases where
Yeah,
soldiers were basically jogging, and
yeah.
it makes the unseen seen,
And
right?
what happened with the Pokemon Go, right? That it was just a fun game, but now they basically released that actually people were capturing data for them, and they used it for the reconstruction, like the for Google Earth number 2, right?
So, I made a video about this. I think this is also where like the discourse, the thing I'm really trying to do with the kind of content I put out is to stay grounded in like the facts of what's happening. So this is one there, the story, the meme has become very popular that Pokemon Go is just like every user session was being mined to reconstruct stuff. No. It's like if you were scanning a Pokestop, which is a much smaller number of users, and they're scanning like friggin' fountains and parks and stuff. Like that's not going to make Earth 2. Like they want it to make Earth 2 if you voluntarily do it, but that back catalog of stuff like isn't turning into a 3D model. On the other hand, people are talking less about like Tesla's self-healing map of the world. Like Tesla is able to do a bunch of stuff and only send up the data that's like, when things have changed. So they're not hammering your 4G or 5G, LTE or Wi-Fi connection at the end of the day. It's sending up deltas just to build this sort of self-healing map. And so, it's like, it's so easy, to your point about conspiracy, like so easy to go full conspiracy theorist on this stuff where it almost like loses the nuance in the conversation. And then like it turns into an us versus them discussion versus like kind of trying to find the middle ground, or consensus. And the only way you can do that is if you understand like the good or bad of what's going on.
When I touched the topic of conspiracies, I'm not thinking about them versus us, because I don't think that on the other side there is only a government or only a bunch of these high-level society people that are just knowing everything and moving with the puppets. Like, I really think that every company is just watching their own good, and they are hiring people that are much more clever than a typical person in the government or just general public. So when they are doing something, that they usually have alternative motives for that, meaning it does not necessarily to be bad motives, but they have multiple motivations why they want to capture data, why they want to I'll be very honest, okay? For this live webinar, you had to do through the registration for you to be able to watch it live. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to better? Am I doing this to be able to remind you with email that you can watch Bilawal in 3 hours, and you can comment on it? Yeah, that's one motivation. But another motivation is that if I use only LinkedIn, I don't own the data. I don't own the base of my audience, right? So I'm doing this also to collect emails so that in the future I can get to people more directly, not only through LinkedIn.
Sure. Yeah.
And this is ulterior motive and something that is not like straightforward, but it's not for the bad. I don't want to like sell these data to anybody. I just want to give the better service in the future to the audience and just to build the brand better. So I think these similar situations are happening in those big companies. So for example, when we mentioned the Pokemon Go, I think that they had this in mind that, people could actually help us capture some data. But it doesn't really mean that the Rothschild came and said them, you guys need to collect the data.
Yeah, it's like CIA funded backed operation to collect everyone's data. It's not that. Yeah. It's I think it's very interesting example going back to the geofencing one that kind of exemplifies how companies are facing this tension to like balance those motives, right? Like I would argue what you're doing is a social contract that most people accept, right? Like if you go sign up for like a Substack And anyone listening, feel free to go to maptheworld.ai and give me your email too if you want. If you want to get notified, like that's a social contract that's agreed upon. I think the disingenuous version of that would be like if unbeknownst to the user, you were collecting some data that they weren't even aware of, right? That's where that sort of unethical line starts getting crossed, which is sort of like, I'll give you an example. I've been going deep down this rabbit hole of these vessel tracking, right? Like, how do you know when a vessel turns off its transponder where it is? And yeah, if you have the transponder on and you're near shore, there's like a receiver that picks it up. There's satellites in orbit that'll pick it up. And obviously satellites can image you, right? And you've got SAR and all this other stuff. But it turns out another really great way to track vessels is even if you are on a like a shadow fleet. And so shadow fleets are basically vessels that are actively obfuscating their identity by putting a wrong essentially like identifier, repainting the ship, turning off AIS, doing all this stuff. But there's like people on board that are playing Candy Crush or some game, right? That like is collecting location data. And then you can use that to figure out where these like dark vessels are. So it's this, like that feels like unbeknownst to the user type of thing where they're like just playing a game and location data is being collected. Now, of course, this is being used to solve crime and things like this too, which is like, again, like a dual use spectrum. So there are so many examples like this, right? And going back to geofencing, which is like I said, I just made a video on this. Google did a smart thing when Apple did this from the get-go, where Google was starting to get all these requests being like, "Hey, new robbery, new bank, tell us who was in the circle." Google just moved location history on device, but they did it in a way that didn't break location ads. So you can still keep doing location ads. They get their business, kind of need met, but you don't have this like sort of honeypot of data that any government around the world would be like, ooh, if only I could see where everyone was. Let me go send a warrant to Google to send that. So I think more and more companies will do that. And this is where I get excited about AI. We're like right now we're doing a bunch of stuff. Like, I don't know how many folks listening to this would like have ChatGPT help them with forms, right? And you just you're like, I'm in a form. Let's say you're filling out your healthcare form or something else, like a bank statement or like bank application.
I did taxes with the
sure.
ChatGPT.
There you go. Right. Like I did my taxes with Claude too. And it's like, you just do Control C, Control V, and you paste all the shit in, including your PII. And then you need to trust the privacy posture of the company you're giving that data to. This new design lab that the US government has started just released a very small model where what it does is it scrubs all the PII before you send it. And in the geospatial world, we're very familiar with this, right? Like there's so many cameras like dash cams that will scrub the face and license plate at the edge. So you don't even get the pixels. You can't even unmask if you wanted to. So I think we'll start seeing this kind of split compute architecture emerging where we can get the best of these cloud models that clearly are aggregating our data and then training on it. But you can kind of give them what you need to get the answer rather than by default giving everything. So automatically this model scrub your social security number or your name or whatever, or your home address, because you don't need that to fill out the form, right? It's just we're lazy. Most users are lazy and they're just toss everything in there. So that's I'm getting very excited about this sort of split compute approach to solve some of these quandaries, because the other thing I think people don't realize about you mentioned the kinds of, I don't want to say basically a digital twin of our activity that's being reconstructed almost unbeknownst to us. I think the biggest one right now is really the conversations we have with LLMs, because unlike a Google search, right? You share a lot more about yourself with
way more
with Claude, with Gemini, with whatever, right? With ChatGPT. And so gosh, imagine the temptation to be hey, I want you to tell me all the users that are likely to vote for this candidate versus that candidate. Who has anti-government views or whatever. You can ask the type of questions and get a far more detailed answer than you would have otherwise, right? It's almost like we're voluntarily sharing our hopes, wishes, desires, anxieties, and worries. And I don't think we've quite contended with that yet. But I keep asking myself, just Google has Google Trends. What happens when you have Gemini trends or ChatGPT trends? And Claude has done a bit of this where they do aggregated anonymized analysis of various conversations to see what are people talking about. And then they try to cluster in oh, these folks are doing bad stuff. Let's ban these users. Mm-hmm. But my God, I don't think most users realize that they're sort of pouring themselves into these systems. And right now, this data may not be used against us, but it can be in the future. And so how do we find a way to mitigate the downside of that while having the upside of being able to use these extremely intelligent, systems that have a distillation of all human knowledge and creativity? Like, you kind of want both.
I'm just thinking about the difference. Like, few years ago, you would really think about what you put into Google search, right? Because you might be afraid, like, oh, it's stored somewhere in a cage. They can see what I'm looking for. They will just start suggesting me these products from brands and everything else. And now we're just like pouring information into LLMs
YOLO.
yeah, exactly. Like, there is no tomorrow. Like, we gotta get this information right now. So, and I'm doing these mental exercises as well. Like, for example, I just the other day I was asking the ChatGPT, because I've been working with ChatGPT almost like 2 years or so. So it passed with lots of information and lots of conversations, right? So I really expect it to know me quite well. So I did this mental exercise where I asked ChatGPT, like, go through our like previous conversation, and based on your knowledge about me, give me 10 biases that you think I suffer. I don't care whether they are good ones or bad ones, whether they are helping me or hurting me. Just give me the list of top 10 biases you can see that I'm suffering, and give me the analysis of that. And I almost cried. So,
Oh man, yeah, it's like ChatGPT knows more about like you probably than like people who have therapists, right? Like, 'cause that's like a 1 hour session you go to. You talk to this thing all the time, man. I mean, one thing, if people listening you should try this too. If you end up doing like OpenClaw or Hermes Agent or even just Codex or whatever, take the export that you get from all your chat providers, like. If you're like me, you kind of have your different facets of your life across these different LLMs. Get that data export and have it organize it, and then ask similar questions. And yeah, it's the most amazing and scary thing simultaneously. It's like it'll tell you very helpful stuff, and then you start thinking about like, what if somebody could like use this against you with adversarial intent,
and the crazy,
like, ooh.
The crazy part is that it's still in the toddler phase. The AI is still a toddler. Like we don't understand that this is not the end or even the middle, or this is a very, very early stage of AI. So if it's already like replacing the therapist and can understand you even more than your spouse, just imagine what will happen in 3 to 5 years.
Oh gosh, yeah. Like I think that's the real God's eye view that's forming, right? Is like, and you could do that sort of aggregate based on like a household, on like a neighborhood, on a city. Some of the population dynamics research that kind of intersects with geospatial is also very interesting and chilling simultaneously. And so like, yeah, man, I mean, that's the new social contract we're building. And then this is where it starts getting weird. Is like, I don't know if you've been to events recently, like, especially when I go to Bay Area events, a lot of people have those like microphone pendants, right? Like, so a lot of folks are like, so my buddy Linus Eckensten, like this AI creator, like really popular AI creator, loves this thing because it's like, oh, it reminds me of everything. I'm like, we're like literally like, you remember there's this trend called quantified self, like many years ago. People were like, oh, I want to like monitor every aspect of my being. I think now we're really, really kind of, speed running towards that approach where I think there's a default expectation. This is obviously a live stream. This will be public and indexed, but there's a default expectation already, like in tech, that if you go on a Zoom call, that call is being recorded, right? And there's probably a note taker on both sides. And so like that's, if you fast forward that to like AR glasses and, microphones and ubiquitous sensors around us, we're sort of digitizing every aspect of our activities, like beyond what we're doing on a computer or on a digital device too. And so that has, again, like good and bad consequences. And so, the crazy part about all of this is just how fast it's moving, right? So where it's like almost like policy can't really keep up, even if it wanted to. And, but that's what makes this both exciting and like an important time to like actually be in the space and, build your own stuff and, advocate for the things you do want and don't want.
Do you think for the future that people will be able to live like half AI, half not AI? Like half artificial life and half real life, or do you think they will have to choose the path? Like they cannot be in both like teams. You either go full AI and cyborg style of life, or you just keep living Amish style of life. Which one do you think it will be?
I see. I again, like, I don't like to see the world in kind of like black and white, 0 and 1. I think there's so much gray in all of this, and I think that's the discourse is simpler online when you do us versus them. When you do this sort of like, as the British would call it, like the divide and conquer approach. It's like you're either Amish or you're either AI. Like pick a side. Like that's clean, but I think it's like. This is why I mentioned, like, writing on pieces of paper, trying to do the first draft myself, leaning more on voice notes. And, like instead of doing to-dos, I like literally like to use these like frickin' analog pieces of cart. Like, and maybe this is just because I'm like a millennial with back pain, and Gen Z person listening to this would be like, what a boomer. Like, what do you mean you write with, I don't even know how to write. Like it's funny. Like sometimes I'll give like cursive handwriting to like my producer to be like, oh shit, I couldn't read what you said, but ChatGPT translated it for me. I'm like, so okay. I think there's a way to find a balance, and it doesn't have to be both, man. I think that's a false dichotomy.
Bilal, this is a bullshit question. It's like answering the question about the life-work balance when you are speaking about a startup and doing huge business. There is no work-life balance. I don't think that this is the case.
You think
so? My question, I will ask differently.
Please. Because I think there is work-life balance, by the
way. Imagine in 3 years, Elon Musk will release the microchip, the Neuralink. It will cost you $20,000. So very affordable for many, many, many people, including you, me, our families. And it will allow you to get like 10x potential of yourself. Will you do it?
I'm definitely not doing the V1 of Neuralink, man. I'll wait for the V3.
No? Okay. I understand to being afraid of the child,
the moment we're talking about sickness. Like implanting stuff into brain, like it's funny, and I'll give you a great example of this. I live in Austin, right? Peptides are so popular here. There's this huge community of people that are very into like biohacking and stuff. I think some people have a risk profile that they're willing to be like, take a drug that isn't even officially released yet, but you can import it and it's cheap and people are doing it and getting great results. I don't know. Like, again, I'm cautiously optimistic. I'm not like, optimistic to a fault where I'd just be like, oh, this has to be good. So I don't know. Like I take like cautious steps when it comes to that. So if V3 of like a neural implant...
it's V3. Let's say it's V3.
I mean, yeah, I'll do it. But that doesn't mean it's like you're either with us or against us, right? Like, does the V3 of the neural implant...
It actually is. It kind of is, because you will get access to all of your brain and your sensoring capabilities. I don't know what more.
I don't know. All of your brain sensory. That sounds like V10 or V11. I don't know. It's like we barely understand how like all the interpretability work for like digital brains that you don't have to poke and prod at. We barely understand how they work, and they're completely digital. And we have an even less of an understanding on how physical brains work. So I think like by the V3 Neuralink, if it actually turns into a consumer product, we could have that conversation. But realistically, what I think will happen is like, it'll be in a good place for people who have some kind of like a visual, like sensory impairments. And it'll be good for that. And I'd like to see how that fares over a long period of time before I jump in. And I suspect that's how society is, right? Like you've got the adoption curve, right? Like the tech adoption curve. The tech adoption curve is never, oh, you either are all in or all out. It's always like there's the early adopters and then there's the laggards on the other side. And slowly people in the middle try to come and adopt it. I see AI as no different. And honestly, like, what's happening right now is almost proof that that's how it's going to play out, given how much tension there is about AI. And some people are still just using ChatGPT, like I mentioned. The adoption of agentic AI is probably very, very, very low, right? And so I think we underestimate how long it takes for tech to proliferate. And yeah, man, maybe this is one point where we disagree, is like, I don't view it as like you're either, all in or all out. And I also do think there's work-life balance. Like, this is the one big thing I have with AI, right? Like when people talk about, oh my God, there's this like utopian future, et cetera. Like, okay, maybe it's not super utopian. I kind of view it as like you have both, kind of situations play out parallelly. Like you have the utopia and dystopia playing out parallelly. And that's kind of what society feels like thus far. But a big part of AI is like, so that I don't have to sit at my computer anymore, man. Like, but some people are making the choice to sit at their desk all day and keep doing more and more and more and more. A lot of creators I talk to are like, hey, now I can use AI to do like 3 videos a week instead of 1 video a week. And then that's like a constant sort of like battle that'll just keep continuing where people are going to want to do more and more. And to me, that just feels like you're creating an exhausting treadmill of your own design. Like, do we have to do that? Or can you use the freed up time to actually, like, I don't know, have hobbies? Like I've been getting deep back into guitar lately. I didn't have time for guitar and like building out guitar amps and taking lessons and doing all this stuff. And now I do. And so like, I'm trying my best to like not fill in every extra time that automation saves us to be in like, kind of the meme that you see on Twitter. It's like, oh, guys, you got to lock in right now. This is the time. Otherwise, you'll be in the permanent underclass. I view it as far more like balanced thing, man. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's just kind of how I view it.
But this is connected to the question or the topic that I wanted to come back to, which is the future of the world with all the humanoids, robots, and AI, where most of the current jobs will be just vanished, right? So people like Elon Musk or Sam Altman, they are speaking about this utopia, about this world where you don't have to work because you will be provided with everything you need somehow. I don't know how.
Right. I mean, you mentioned it too, right? Like we're outsourcing our thinking, if at least for knowledge workers, right?
So,
like, yeah.
So and they are claiming that people will have time to like live their lives, to enjoy their hobbies, to just do their thinking and enjoying themselves. Like, do you think this is the case? Do you think that a median person in the world is capable of spending this useless time where he's not in the work?
I mean, you're almost proving my point about balance, right? Like, I think there's folks that really, it's like temperament based, right? Some people like to throw themselves all into something, right? Other folks view their job as just a job. They're like, I have my 9 to 5, I clock in, I clock out, and I'm an accountant, let's say. And then my real hobby is, woodworking or whatever the hell it is, right? Like some people view it like that. I think there may be other folks like you and me where like our personal and professional stuff is like the Venn diagram of overlap is very like, kind of, we're always kind of working in a sense, but we're also not, right? So I think like, again, it's hard to make these predictions. I think as more automation happens, there will be a section of society that views this as an opportunity to get ahead of the other person and work even more. And that's, by the way, the transition point, right? Like the thing that Sam and all these folks are talking about is sort of like this idealized utopia where everything's done and maybe the only work that's being done is like people maintaining the data centers so the NVIDIA GPUs like don't go down and we can like just keep that going. I personally view it as like if people get freed up to do things, they will use that time and, find meaning like outside of work. Like there's so many things that I'm into that doesn't have to do with the day job, if you will. Like, why not? But will there be people that are like, kind of unhappy with that world because they're so used to throwing themselves all into something? Yeah, probably too. But these kind of like discussions, like I think also are, if you try to fast forward something to the limit, it just ends up being sci-fi. I think of it like, the acute problems people are facing, the rocky transition right now is the thing that I don't have an answer to almost. To give you a great one, my cousin has a bunch of these like friends that are like, Ivy League, Columbia grads. Some of them got into like these top tier consulting firms like Bain, McKinsey, BCG. And a bunch of them basically got a letter saying, hey, your start date's been pushed out 6 months. And I wonder if that start date's going to get pushed out 12 months and then their offer is going to get rescinded. Like that's the part that's like, I think creating a bunch of pain. So what you have is like the real reality of kind of what's happening. And then they hear like Elon or Sam say, but in the future, everything will be great. You will have so much time at your disposal. And so like, I mean, that's tough, right? So my advice to those kids is like, go do a startup. Now's the time to do a startup. You actually don't need that much venture. You probably don't even need to raise and you can go build something and probably learn something. Would I have said that 2 years ago? Probably not, man. So that's kind of how I view it. It's maybe more of a nuanced position, but yeah.
The reason why I'm asking this question is
Yeah.
because I'm heavily pessimistic about this.
Yeah, what's your take?
I don't see the future where 99% of people don't have to go to the work. They don't have the job. They are provided with money and with food and everything else, and they can spend the time thinking and enjoying themselves and doing no harm and just doing their hobbies. I think this is way off the reality.
I agree. Yeah. You need some way to feel
There are
productive.
Yeah, that's one thing. There are mainly two things that made me make me think about this way. As in everything else, there is this Gaussian curve, which basically explains some extreme positions on
Right.
one and other side, and
Sure.
there is this massive group of people. And I think this massive group of people is not where we think they are, or where Musk and Sam Altman think they are. The majority of people are people that are going to 9 to 5 jobs. They are spending their life just trying to earn just enough money to just live. They don't have time and skills to be able to thinking above themselves, about their hobbies, about anything else. I really think this is the case. And the second thing why I think it wouldn't work is, have you heard or read about the mice experiment? It's experiment where
Oh, they
this
can like
guy did.
take as much sugar or something as they
No,
want.
no, no,
And
no,
or
no, no,
which
no,
one?
not
No?
this one. This was about creating the ideal world for mice. Okay, so they would put their more than enough of the food, more than enough of the water. They have put these different toys and things how to entertain for mice, and they were just watching the whole generation of development of those mice, right? So it went like this from the beginning. So mice were enjoying themselves, and they were just reproducing, and there were more and more and more. But in the time, they started to see that mice lost their temper, they lost their purpose, their energy. They started to create these packs, even though there were there was no reason to fight for the food. They still started to fight for the food for no reason, just because, right? And at the end, they just extinct. Like, there was zero mice at the end,
Wow. Yeah, that
because
sounds like the plot to the Matrix, right? We're in the Matrix.
they stopped reproducing. They start developing like mental illnesses, and I I just realized after seeing this experiment and reading about this, that this is the case. I think also for people, if they will not have the purpose for life, I don't think that the majority of people will be able to fulfill their lives just with their hobbies. I don't think so.
Well, I mean, like we've spent so many like decades, dare I say, like a century plus at this point, training people to, essentially listen to the bell ringing so that we could like condition folks to work on like a factory floor and kind of train them for this world, like of a 9 to 5 type of job. And, if the expectation is that changes overnight, like, yeah, that's gonna be rocky. But I almost like, it sounds like the plot to the Matrix, what you're saying, where, like how the agent and the architect explains to Neo that, hey, we tried creating a utopia for humans, but the people wouldn't accept the simulation. We had to anchor it in a world where there was conflict and there was, basically, an antagonistic force versus just a purely positive utopian force to like, kind of get people to buy the simulation. I get that, but it's like also like, I don't know if it's productive to even think about the world where everything absolutely is done by machines, man. Like, oh, shit, I'm waiting for, the AI plumber to be solved, right? Like right now, it's like I was talking to my business school professor like a couple months ago, and she was mentioning some folks after B school, one of her star students is like chose to be an electrician and like works 6 months a year and then spends the rest in Hawaii. and does that. So I think like the transition is going to be rocky. We'll see new ways. But to talk about the crazy utopian output, like it sounds really nice, like when Elon's saying it on a podcast. I just don't know if like that's the future we should be prepping for, because I'm far more interested, like I said, in like what does the immediate transition look like for the people that are doing entry level jobs right now. They're going to have a hard time, getting a job, or really senior people that have a hard time being like, oh shit, I just know how to manage. Like, what do I do? Like that's the more interesting like challenge and question, right? Like, and that's like we're barely figuring out how to go about doing that, because you see every company being like, oh yeah, let's like downsize our group by X amount or Y amount, and that trend seems to be on the up and to the right. But all the physical stuff seems to be also on a trend up and to the right. But does everyone want to like, would a middle manager in tech want to go be an electrician? Probably not. So how's that going to play out?
What do you think about all the 3D and 4D Gaussian splatting? I have to touch this topic every time I have somebody from the field, because it is maybe overhyped, but still it's very valid technology these days with a lot of future. So what do you think about it?
I mean, I love radiance fields. I think Gaussian splatting as a representation is very interesting. Clearly, there's been a bunch of standardization towards it. I did a video and an interview recently with Brian McClendon from Niantic that did a bunch of the standards work, and also the Kronos group, the president of the Kronos group, to just kind of get into this. Like, I was asking them a similar question, like why did y'all like decide to standardize stuff right now, and why Gaussian splatting? There's triangle splatting, gazillion other approaches. There just seems to be enough like industry adoption around it. So I love it. I love 4D Gaussian splatting as well. I got into AR, VR through VR media, like building camera systems and doing stuff for YouTube VR, which was all stereo 180 and 360 at the time. I did a bunch of work for Paul Debevic's group around volumetric capture, like the early days of like sort of 6DoF video. So like deep view, like multi-plane images and multi-depth map images, which I would say are like the predecessor to sort of radiance fields and Gaussian splats. I'm very excited by all of it. Like, sadly, I have a Vision Pro that's like mostly gathering dust. And, I think the only thing that warrants me using a device like that, beyond when I'm traveling, using it as a virtual display, is 6DoF content. And so anything that makes 6DoF content possible is amazing. And personally, I want a 3D Gaussian splat of the entire world. I think that's super cool. It's like lifelike representation. It's cool to see Apple going in this hybrid approach with photogrammetry mixed with splats, and I'm all for it, and I love it. Yeah.
When we were before, like with my friends and colleagues, thinking about the future of the digital twin of the world, it was always about the limits with the polygons and with textures and everything else. And I think that 3D Gaussian splatting is changing this heavily.
Of course,
because this is somehow becoming very achievable, I think, with all the computing power and the development, and especially with the allowance of basically any camera to capture the data and to recreate the 3D Gaussian splatting. It doesn't really matter how good and how detailed it will be, but it is capable to recreate it, right? So do you think that this might be the way how the future of Google Earth 2.0 or 3.0 could work? Like that we could actually send the data from our devices to Google, for example, to process it and to just add them in real time to the digital twin of the world?
Oh man, I mean, I want that future to happen. I don't know if there's like an incentive to create a sort of, I mean, I guess Niantic's the closest to trying to do sort of like the UGC contributed model with Scaniverse. But again, like how beyond like, let's say people scanning parks and stuff, how are you going to get like ubiquitous captures? How do you homogenize and have those captures look good with everything else? And then how do you think about all the boring stuff, right? Like you talked about Europe, takedown considerations. Oh, somebody took down their model. how does that work? If somebody blurs their home, how does that propagate to the UGC layer and all this other stuff, right? Like obviously you're not blurring houses. Somebody can take a photo of your house and put it on Instagram. You can't blur that, right? But maps, like there is this social contract, like we were discussing, where you can do like takedowns and you can blur your house because basically people want expectations of privacy. So I think that's kind of the biggest. It's like this weird sort of operational challenge of making this sort of like self-healing map of the world, which is why it's funny. Like I think the first self-healing map of the world that we'll get is like a machine readable one, not a human readable one. And so like giving the example of Tesla, for example, or some of the satellite companies out there, whether it's SAR or electro-optical, I think they're in a better position if you own the sensors to go capture and refresh the world at a regular cadence. Like I could see, I had a chance to work on Google Maps Immersive View as one of the co-founders of that effort. All of that stuff is all indoor stuff, right? Like businesses uploading images and you've got like this fly through of an indoor space that's a radiance field. I could see like select rollouts like that, but sort of like collaboratively mapping the world. I mean, like, there are efforts like this. Let's say like Hive Mapper is an effort like this, right? There's Spexy that's trying to do this with drones, right? Like Hive Mapper is maybe doing it with dash cams.
The service GeoNet for geospatials for surveyors, which is basically the correction network for GNSS, and it's connected to crypto actually.
I think I am familiar with this, where they have a bunch of these like ground stations, different places and stuff. Yeah.
And well, basically the idea behind it is that you can buy or I think you can actually use your own base station to join the network. So it already is capturing or covering like the majority of the populated world and where the civilization actually lives. So it's really huge. And I was thinking in a similar way, for example, with capturing 360 data. Just imagine that every electric car, EV car, would join the system where you would just mount 360 camera on the top of your hood. You would join some kind of a program or service where you will be sending data from wherever you drive, just collecting the data. And for example, they would pay for your electricity or whatever. I don't know. But just to find the right incentives for people to voluntarily capture the data from their electric cars, for example.
Right. Yeah, and I know some of these telematic companies are also doing things where you can, if you have a Tesla, you can like plug in a thing into your USB and it'll capture the 6 or 8 cameras and make that accessible. So you don't even have to do the 360 step, right? Like, again, this is kind of what Spexy and Hive Mapper are trying to do, one from an aerial and one from a ground perspective to create that incentive structure. They both seem to have their crypto-backed, or blockchain-backed approaches. I think actually they both have their own. One is using a stable coin, the other has their own coin. Like they're kind of working. It just hasn't like taken off. Like I think when you talk about Earth 2.0 or 3.0, the thing I'm most excited about is like the really high quality heterogeneous sensor data just getting fused together. Like I would settle for just aerial and ground fusion. Like we've got Apple has ground level and aerial. Google has ground level and aerial. Let's fuse those things together. If you see Google's public information, like that data is perfectly aligned to each other. If you look at the transitions between Street View and ground level, just inside of Maps or Earth, that transition's perfect. So I think like that'll be the next thing consumers can expect is like, this very standardized substrate of the world, and maybe in enterprise capacity, as I mentioned, like sort of satellite companies and other companies that have the sensors could maybe do something like this, like Tesla, maybe more for machine readable or analysis purposes, but consumer facing, a pretty model to look at. I think the best bet is to just fuse aerial ground data and make a massive splat out of it. And that's something I'm really excited about. I hope we see something cool, and maybe Apple is just the tip of the iceberg there.
But you already called it the right way because you mentioned the UGC of geospatial, right? So that would be actually the ability for general public to capture some site or the object or whatever and geolocate it and put it into Google Earth 3.0, right?
Yeah.
And I have seen several tries of different companies with creating this like a world map with user generated content with 3D objects, but I don't think it ever worked, mainly because of the amount of the people that joined it.
That's right. Yeah.
So the only two companies I can think of who could make this happen would be probably just Google with their maps and Apple.
That's right. And as I mentioned, yeah, maybe there's like the step one would be just to take their own data and fuse that together and then maybe expose it. But all the other annoying operational things I mentioned, I suspect will be the things that hold that off from coming online sooner. I think an experiment we should all follow is sort of what Niantic Spatial is trying to do with Spexy, right? Where they got into this partnership with Spexy where like city scale collects from drones. Like over the course of a week, they can like capture all of LA, et cetera. If that approach works and you kind of get the best of both worlds where it's like a low altitude drone collect that gives you some ground level views, but you can put it together to get the higher altitude aerial view. If that model works, since Spexy has that incentive structure, I think it'd be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Mm-hmm.
But hey, I agree with you. It's like the companies that have it, what's their incentive to kind of do it and like to have the foundation substrate? Because I think for most consumers, just a really good model that you can explore from aerial and ground is like kind of good enough. Like, like the idea of building and expanding the world is something I'm personally very passionate about. And sometimes I wonder, what is the minimum number of contributors you need to sort of map the world with these kind of modes? And like, if that number starts getting smaller and smaller, and let's say AI gets better, you could have sparser collects, less data. You can use like all of social media. Like one of the things that's been really fascinating to me is like the line of research that takes like all the like basically Rome in a day paper on steroids, which basically said like, let's go take all the photos we can find online on Flickr and try to create a global 3D reconstruction from it. Some of those results are starting to look pretty good. And so maybe that's an approach that'll work out too.
It's funny because like just a few years ago, if you wanted to reconstruct even the street, the sidewalk or whatever, you would need to follow correct photogrammetry workflows. So to use different angles, different paths and everything else right now. But today with the Gaussian splatting, you can literally just take out your phone, walk straight in a line, and just recreate it in a 3D. So I think with the right incentives, it could be quite easy to just use teenagers and basically kids with phones to reconstruct this. I don't know how it would work legally or whatever, but I can easily imagine instead of watching kids, they are playing these games and there are always like advertisements, like always ads going on, right? And this goes for 30 seconds, 60 seconds. So what if instead of that, for the kid to continue with the game, they had to walk 500 meters through the streets with their camera on, for example. Okay, I understand that there will be some consequences legally.
Sure. Yeah.
But just trying to come up with the idea of some interesting incentives, how to make people capture the world around them.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, you're basically describing Niantic's stated goal, right? With Scaniverse too. And I think it's a good question, like, who is going to sort of nail the creation and consumption loop? Where, like, I think the thing that's missing and why this hasn't popped off, in my opinion, is like, yes, there's the incentive to create and you can pay people, and that kind of works, right? Again, Hive Mapper, Mapillary, at least if you want to update your speed signs in your area for your DOT, it seems like a good place to go, or figure out if there's like a new crosswalk or, a new road that's been constructed. A dash cam seems to work. Fleet telematics companies are trying to do their own version of this, right? With, basically, delivery services that are trying to license and sell their data for this kind of at least ground level reconstruction. But this idea of a person going and doing this sort of like 4-view synthesis capture, like you mentioned, like a straight line versus like a geometric, photogrammetric reconstruction is really interesting. Yeah, like I'm super stoked on it. Like it's kind of sad that like that hasn't popped off yet, and maybe it will. But I think the reason that it hasn't is like, some of the stuff I mentioned earlier about sort of the operational issues. But it's like also, where is the right surface that people want to go to every day to see UGC, where there is a creation consumption loop that'll get you to want to complete the map. And I feel like that exists for panos, right? Like people do put panos on Google Maps, for example. And like I said, businesses may have an incentive to do indoor spaces. I'm very excited to see how this Niantic experiment plays out, because they could do that.
You mentioned the devices to record the voice.
Yeah.
Very soon, I think there will be a reason for people to have their camera as well, not only recording the voice, but actually recording what they are doing, because the VLM would be able to help more with the like reconstructing the workflows and just helping people to navigate better and whatever. And also, you just mentioned that you are wearing the meta glasses. Okay, this
not
might
right
be,
now, but I do like wearing them.
Okay,
yeah.
But this might be the another next step to basically capturing the world in real time, nonstop.
That would be cool, right? Like if you got your everything's turning into a robot, right? And AR glasses are kind of half robots. You've got all the sensors that a robot must. And yeah, so like maybe passive reconstruction of stuff. I mean, that brings up all the stuff of like, you gonna be reconstructing your home and doing all this other stuff, and maybe you want your private map, and then you want the public map, and maybe you want to opt in that data, and that could give you some money. There's already a bunch of these apps that are getting people to upload the entirety of their camera roll. So
and not to mention, you are already doing this with your Roomba vacuum cleaner.
Sure, dude. And I just got recently this Matic vacuum. You should check this out, MATIC. It's literally like a Street View car. It like goes and builds like a voxel 3D map of your place. And the coolest part about it is you can like, if a spill happens, you can like circle something on the ground, be like, go clean this up, and it'll go and like clean it up. And I'll keep updating this. Like, if you're like a 3D slam like nerd, like this is like one of the coolest, like $600-$700 or something like this.
And this is well connected to our conversation about the motivation of big companies, because when Amazon bought the company Roomba, it was not because the vacuum cleaning is a good business. It was especially for the ability to capture the data from homes of the people, and for Amazon to be able to basically add another variable of how they can define different households, different size of families, different needs, and everything else, right?
Well, that's why it got blocked, right? That's why
it was about the spatial data. It was never about the good business of vacuum cleaning.
And maybe that's an example where like the governments did the right thing, and US and EU regulators like, no, Amazon, we're not going to let you buy Roomba. But yeah, it's cool. I mean, Matic is one of the reasons I got it is they do it all on device. Now, do they like send some distilled data up to the cloud that I don't know about that still classifies your home? It's like maybe I don't know.
That's one thing that they are not doing. Another thing is that my friend actually told me the story that his neighbor or friend bought how is it called, to boil your water, this fast
kettle,
which is actually connected to Wi-Fi. I don't know why. Like I really don't know the purpose of this, but it's crazy if you imagine that somebody could hack your kettle through Wi-Fi.
Right. And use that to jump to other devices, right?
Yeah, this can happen also to other devices. So when we mentioned the Mavic vacuum cleaner, this could happen. And even though Mavic is not sending those data, somebody that will hack it will be doing this.
This is the one part where it's like it kind of goes back to our earlier conversation about like the social contract and the good and bad from a lot of these things. The IoT trend got a little out of hand, right? Like, why does my refrigerator need like a connection to the Wi-Fi? The thing I hated the most, I got a printer recently, and I could not even set up the printer without like logging in and creating an account and connecting it to Wi-Fi. And it's like so annoying that some of these companies are doing this, right? Like, and the incentive, right? They're like, we want to collect as much data to figure out where you are, blah, blah, blah. We'll send you, hey, sign up for an auto subscription. So it's like, on one hand, I'm like, oh, it sounds like you could imagine like a vision video where it's like you wake up in the morning, your open claw's like, hey, Michael's woken up now. Cool. And your RF, like your Wi-Fi, like sends an event signal to your agent being like, hey, he's going downstairs now. Turn the kettle on automatically. And you're like, oh, that's cool. Like my kettle is ready to go. On the other hand, you're putting like a bunch of crazy shit like in your home that's like, collecting a bunch of data. So it's like, this is the part that's like weird. And it's very much a generational thing too, I've noticed, where like people who grew up before and after tech are more aware of some of these things, and whereas like younger people who kind of grew up as a fish in water are sort of like I talked to a bunch of these kids who are like, so I do a bunch of scouting for this VC firm, and I talked to a bunch of these like kids that I'm like, wait, like your app needs me to like give screenshot access every few seconds to your app and full Gmail. Like, do people actually do this? It's like, oh yeah, all the time. I'm like, and it's like clearly a generational thing. So I think this is where like the kind of the consumer landscape is so interesting and weird, where I can imagine the superpower of these things, but you can imagine like the negative downside of these things, exactly like the hacking case that you brought up. And But
it also, you mentioned the subscriptions. Like I have a feeling that today there is no service you could get without a subscription. Like, right. I have seen this meme where it was a guy that was starving and somebody asked him like, what's happening? Oh, I forgot to pay my subscription for food.
Oh God.
I think unfortunately this might be the future.
Everything does seem to be moving.
You really will have to sign up for a subscription with some Walmart or Tesco or whichever brand. Otherwise they will not deliver you the food. You will have to join their subscription form or any of the tier, and they will deliver you the food every month. If you don't pay, you die.
My God. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, that's a dark future. I mean, like on the physical side, it's totally happening, right? Like more people are renting than ever before than buying homes, right? Like, so that's a form of a subscription where if you don't pay, you're going to get booted out. But to have that for your groceries too, man, that just... It's like it's a weird future, but it's also like, at least on the software side, one of the cool things I love about like Gen Media and Gen AI is like so many people are getting savvy to the fact that like, oh, I don't need to pay for like all of these $20, $30 subscriptions that can now be a workflow that you run with Codex. But guess what? You still got to pay that Codex subscription. Otherwise, all your workflows are going to fall apart.
This comes back to our discussion about the U.S. government basically banning the non-U.S. citizens to use these new models. And in European Parliament, there were actually like very hard discussion about this and how basically one guy is holding the Europe by the balls, because this is a precedent, and this can happen anytime in the future with anything. Just one guy can decide that they will stop the Facebook service in Europe, the LinkedIn service, the YouTube service, whatever, Netflix service. They can stop AI service at all, Yeah, we can go to the court, we can sue US government or whatever, which will take 10 years, but still, like, this is a freaking bad situation.
I guess what's your question there? Like, yeah, I mean, like it's.
No, I'm just saying that we're fucked. There's
no
question.
It's funny. Like, how do you think that's going to play out on the EU side? Like, what is the sentiment? Like, I think a lot of people probably get annoyed when all these features for like months aren't available in Europe, right? And, like I've seen both sides of this debate where people are like, oh, there's no like federal privacy law in the US.
No, this is a pure fear. Just imagine that you already mentioned that you are working with agents. Just imagine me building the business around AI agents for next 3 to 5 years. Yeah, I will be fully dependent on
turned off.
Yeah, and they will turn it off, and I'm fucked. Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was trying to get at, is like maybe there's going to be some sort of like middle ground where it'll get easier for US companies to operate in the European landscape. Like you said, like the sort of the regulation, deregulation debate in Europe is so hot. But I think this applies to everyone, man. Like I think Fable really got so much interest, even in the US, around open source just in the past week, where people were like in the middle of doing stuff and Fable access was cut. People were like, wait a second, this can happen anywhere. This could happen to us. What do we do? And everyone's like immediately trying to figure out GLM 5.2. Let me go like use a bunch of open source models so there's a graceful fallback. And maybe that's kind of how it's going to play out, is like all of this stuff is just going to motivate open source to get better and better.
And maybe this could be the incentive for the end users, for the general public, to support the regulation.
That's right.
Because actually the regulation might say that no, guys, you are not allowed to stop this service, or you need to have backups, or you need to have government supported backups for this service, because there is no way you can just turn it off.
Yeah, or like there should be a graceful like transition period or something. You can't just turn off the lights immediately. Yeah, I think if we start viewing it like a utility service, right, or something fundamental like that, which really, if the trajectory this is on, well before we get to the, nobody has any work to do phase, you're right. Like it's going to kind of seep into various aspects of our life. And it brings up a really interesting question of, should this sort of be treated like, I don't know, like a fundamental human right is on one extreme, and on the other extreme, it's kind of viewing, or maybe in the middle is sort of like viewing it like a utility or something that you don't want to just cut power without giving due notices, for example, right? Like, hey, here's your notice, and pay your bill, otherwise in the next 30 days your power will be cut, or something like this.
With all this utopia thinking of Elon and Sam Altman and these guys, I still go back to the movie. It was called Time, with Justin Timberlake, where they had the counter on their hands, and it was just clocking their time.
Oh, wow, I haven't seen this one. No,
you haven't seen it. Mm-mm. Like their whole life was about like the time was the way of paying for things. There was no like dollars or euros or any currency. The time was the currency. So if they went to go shopping for the groceries, they just reduced their time. Okay, and if you did something, if you earned money, you just got lucked with more of the time.
And what happens when time goes to zero?
Yeah, you die immediately.
Oh shit!
Yeah. So this might be the case for the utopian style of living for the future.
Oh god, that sounds very
where
dystopian.
People have zero purpose, and there will be only like cryptocurrencies and this stuff. I have one last very short topic. Sure. I hopefully you will give me your idea about this.
Sure.
I have seen the set from you know Jimmy Carr, stand-up comic.
I've seen some of his videos. Yeah.
He's very potty-mouthed, but very clever guy. And he said in one of his sets that that AI is actually a god. It is everywhere. It knows everything, and you are speaking to it with your like deepest, most dark secrets. So he just he connected the idea of AI to God. So my last question for you would be, just from top of your head, what you have heard just right now, do you think that this might be the case, that we are building our own God?
I think it's certainly a god, and I like the term pantheon because we have multiple gods, right? Like these kind of small g gods. I mean, it is interesting. I'm a pretty spiritual guy, and like I've gone into all the traditions, and a lot of traditions, especially like Hindu and Sikh traditions, like Vedic traditions and South Asian traditions, have this concept of they call it like Chitar and Gupt, like there's sort of like a scribe, a cosmic scribe, if you will, that's creating this database of all the things you think and then also like the things you think and then the things you actually physically do in the world, like like embodied action you take and then the thoughts that you have. And in a sense, we are building like digital equivalents of these things, right? These systems, we are turning ourselves inside out to them. They do have a pretty good understanding, like the stuff you mentioned of asking, like based on prior conversations and stuff I was talking about, aggregating all your data together. So it feels like we're building certainly views that are reserved for a small g god. Like it certainly does feel like that. And it's funny because that's where like, the Matrix itself is sort of inspired by Eastern traditions and, a combination of like, mystery traditions, and all this other stuff. it feels like there is in tech, kind of this techno-religious fervor that's happened. And I like to joke that whenever I go talk to researchers that are working at the big AI labs, like grabbing a drink, or a lot of them don't even drink anymore, but like just, meeting up with them over a coffee, it's like, it feels like they're either building a god or taming a god. Like that's kind of the vibe that they've got. And you could perhaps see this.
Or in case of Sam Altman, he already feels like a god sometimes. It seems so.
Oh, well, like I don't think Sam is invincible just yet, right? Like it's the same thing with Elon. Like I think as all of these folks are realizing, but at the same time, like they are building very powerful systems, right? Like, and that when you aggregate everyone's like data in that fashion, like you're building, kind of a very much of a omnipresent entity that has a very good idea of what's going on. I think there's no denying that. I find that to be a compelling analogy. But like that's where I like the pantheon analogy too, where it's like many G gods with various, kind of just like right now, you can go buy products that mine your data, and you can go buy products that are cheap and mine your data, and that are expensive and don't. I think we'll have a similar sort of set of options at our disposal. This is also where I really hope that we can kind of own our intelligence to an extent. I think there's certain things you'll only be able to do on the frontier with a big bad data center. But hopefully, like Apple, like, gosh, I got one of these MacBook Pros with like 128 gigs of RAM. I'm hoping more and more of that could be, something that is a sovereign owned experience. And you're seeing all the countries are paying attention to this, right? With sovereign AI is the big buzzword. So I think the pantheon of gods analogy is indeed a very, very compelling one.
Last question. Generally, are you positive about the future or negative or neutral?
Dude, I'm cautiously optimistic about the future. I think this is like a better time than ever in history to build stuff. I think if you're, it's a shitty time because the ladder everyone was expecting to climb is sort of like I said, the haze of fog that prevents you from knowing what's happening in the future is also sort of like, that ladder doesn't even exist anymore. I was at this like conference in New York recently, this Adobe thing, and most creatives feel this way. They're like, dude, the world like I was prepping for just isn't there anymore. So that's the downside. But on the other hand, oh God, it's the best time ever to build. If you have an idea, you can like literally execute it in an evening. If you want to learn about anything, you have the literal Library of Alexandria at your disposal. So all those things considered, like I'm cautiously optimistic about where stuff is going. And, I can't wait to play a small role in whatever happens next.
Thank you so much for Bilawal for doing this. It was really great conversation, and I have a strong feeling that it wasn't the last time you were here.
Thanks, man. It was a fun, wide-ranging conversation. It was great to be on the show.